Hello and welcome to another episode of Sustainability in Your Ear, the Earth911 Podcast. This is the podcast for the week of May 18th, 2020. And we're going to be talking about eco-friendly opportunities and consequences of the COVID-19 lockdown. We're joined today by Sarah Lozanova, our Earth911 writer based in Maine. How are you doing today, Sarah?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Mitch.
The lockdown, the kids, it's all keeping you on your toes?
It is keeping me on my toes. Absolutely.
And we're also joined by Doug Mackey, who is our producer. He's going to be participating more in the podcast conversation this week than usual. We're adjusting still to Evelyn leaving, and we want to welcome all of you to the conversation. Here's the thing. We're depending on where you are, between 8 and 12 weeks into the lockdown in the United States, and we're starting to unlock the economy in many places. We don't know much about this virus in terms of what its potential for virality is in the long term. There are new syndromes emerging amongst children, amongst younger adults, different kinds of impacts of the virus in elderly people as well. And we have to come back to some semblance of a life that is productive so that we can all get on, according to our leaders. But what does that mean? And what does that specifically mean for sustainability? That's what we want to talk about today. So we've been publishing lots of articles about COVID and the kinds of decisions you can make along the way. But let's start off first with one of the good stories coming out of this. Amazingly, people all across the country are recycling a lot more when they're at home. We're seeing local recycling systems report increases in household recycling of up to 40% and across all sorts of different materials, not just plastic or paper, but scrap metal and electronic waste. So there's all these people sitting at home. They're starting to clean out their homes, and they're sending this stuff into recycling systems. But we don't know whether or not those recycling systems are capable of moving all that material through the recycling process because many of them are shut down due to safety concerns about their workers. So on April 29th, we posted COVID-19 good news. Americans are recycling more during the lockdown. And this came from Resource Recycling. Overall, in the city of New York, and this is a city that shut down, trash and recycling volume was up 4.2%. But in places like North Carolina, they saw cardboard recycling increase by 45%, mixed recycling grew by 20%, appliance recycling rose by 50% compared to the previous month. And this all happened while the business recycling environment completely collapsed. We did an interview with Joe Picard, who's the chief economist at the Institute for Scrap Recycling Industries a couple of weeks back, and he was talking with us about the fact that many of these recycling programs were starting to ramp up for modernization prior to the lockdown, but because of the lockdown are saddled with payroll issues and other concerns that have kept them from making those investments. And a lot of investments have started to dry up as people with capital sit back and try to figure out what's going to happen. Let's figure out what's going to happen with regard to recycling. So first and foremost, we know people are doing more of it, but what we also have discovered in further reporting that's come from Resource Recycling and from a number of different municipal programs, people are not sorting and cleaning their materials any better than they did before. So prior to the lockdown, our contamination rate means the stuff that is unrecyclable because it's dirty, sorted incorrectly, or not in the right condition, like you sent through shattered CFL bulbs, which are not recyclable. That contamination rate still hovers between 20 and 25%. So we need to use more of our time to do a better job of recycling. So Sarah, what are you doing as you work on recycling in your household during the lockdown to improve things?
Well, one of the things I've been looking at is just source reduction, like just trying to reduce waste to begin with, because it's, so many of the products we buy come in packaging. So I've been trying to buy things from farmers directly, for example, to reduce the amount of recyclables that I have overall. And I do things like I'll make kombucha from home. So then that means that I'm buying less beverages, which all come in containers and get shipped long distances. So I guess my emphasis is largely on just trying to reduce things at the source or reuse things. Like I might occasionally buy kombucha in the store, but then I make it my own using those same bottles. I've also, I don't know that it would be quite called recycling, but sometimes I use cardboard in my garden for weed suppression. One thing I've been finding aggravating is that we can't bring reusable bags to most of the grocery stores. For a while, some stores were letting me bag the groceries myself if I kept the bags in my cart, but some stores aren't doing that at all. So I've been trying to use boxes from the stores to put
I'm saying the same thing with Trader Joe's, Whole Foods. All of these folks are saying we can't use your reusable bags right now for our safety, and that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah, and then the bulk sections are kind of closed down or pre-bagged. So it's a little frustrating because some of the things that are really great ways to reduce waste we can't do right now. I guess I'm also just a little bit concerned about the long-term implications. But same thing, like bringing your own mug into a coffee shop is super taboo now, or refilling a coffee mug in a gas station.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it is kind of discouraging to see, but I do think that's great news that Americans are recycling more. And I think it also shows that possibly we have an increase in volume. Like I know I am buying more online, so I do have more cardboard boxes to figure out what to do with. So I think some of that might be related to people spending more time at home and maybe also cleaning out closets, I would imagine, is part of the reason why we're seeing an increase in electronics recycling.
Sure, and I think what we're seeing is a kind of a reconsideration of all the stuff we have generally. And you called out an important practice, and that's conscious shopping. So, we have several articles on this over the past couple of years, but here are the 4 questions we recommend people ask themselves when they're doing their shopping. And it's a way to save the earth, but it's also a way to save your money. First, do I need this? Right now, a lot of people are buying things like crates of toilet paper that they may not really need under any circumstances unless they intend to go completely off the grid and never come back and shop again. So do I need this is really the first and most important question to ask oneself. And much of the stuff we've been buying for the last 20 or 30 years, since we entered this hyper-capitalist phase where consumption is everything, are not necessary. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. The next question is, can I borrow this? So, I have a pressure washer, an electric pressure washer, so it does not two-stroke, and I've been loaning it to all my neighbors who have been considering either renting or buying a internal combustion engine water pressure washer. So that's a way to help my neighbors as well as to lower our shared costs because they're loaning me tools that I can't, that I don't want to buy.
Yeah, tools are a great example. I think camping gear, there's a lot of things that we tend to just use, maybe twice a year.
Yep.
But they often tend to be durable things. So I think those are the best kinds of things. Or things that you might go through a phase with, like a bread maker might be really fun for 6 months, and you just kind of lose interest in it, but don't want to give it away.
Well, and there'll be a surplus of bread makers after the lockdown.
Yeah, I bet. Good thing to get at Goodwill.
Well, and so then the next question is, can I make this? And in the case of the bread maker, could you have made the bread without the bread maker? Is a good question. I think the most important question is this the best quality I can afford? Because you want to get something that's going to be durable, that's going to last, and something that potentially can be reused when you're done with it. One of the things that I work on a regular basis is telecommunications information, and particularly working for Samsung. That phone that you buy and that you trade up every couple of years is perfectly usable by somebody else. And Samsung is working to start to create a process that will pass that on to another generation of users, perhaps 2 or 3 times before the device is no longer functional. We need to think about that, the quality of stuff, not just the fact that you've got stuff. If you've got good stuff and you have less of it, you can be satisfied all the time about the things you own rather than experiencing that frequent buyer's frustration we all go through.
Yeah, and I think that's especially important for goods that you want to last a long time. Like, I tend to buy shoes and wear them until they fall apart. So buying quality shoes might make them last 2 or 3 times as long. If it's something that is more disposable in nature, like I don't know, a disposable coffee cup, then I would prefer it to be, it's processed as little as possible, maybe be made out of paper,
Mhm.
something that isn't durable. Yeah, but I think for items that we want to keep for a long time, or that you can, even if you like to upgrade your phone every year, if you get a durable model, then somebody else can continue using it if you
And you need to
are
take care of
careful about
it too. It's a
Yeah.
different it's a different approach to owning it, because we do have a throwaway mentality that says this thing's going to get broken. I'm either just going to recycle it, toss it in the bin, or I'm going to, like a lot of people, and unfortunately I'm one of them, keep this thing around the house for years. I've got phones from 1990,
Oh, wow.
and
Antiques now.
they are antiques, worth nothing. So, but that's the kind of thing that, as we come out of COVID, we're saving more right now than we have since the 1980s in the United States. All that money is going to pile up, and it's going to start to burn holes in people's pockets if they don't think about first, do I need this and can I make this or borrow it, before they even consider quality. Once we start rushing back into work or back into our regular way of living, to the extent that's possible, we're going to need to think everything through for its efficiency and sustainability. And we have the opportunity, because for the first time we saw what happens when we stop doing all that stuff, which is truly remarkable.
Yeah, a great resource too is iFixit. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's ifixit.com. But they have manuals and instructions, and they'll even rate products based on how fixable they are. And I think that can be really helpful, especially if you know that, I don't know, your cell phone tends to, I don't know, have battery issues. Can you replace the battery, or do you need to get a new phone? Then you can look up
The
different
right to
models.
repair is the way that's often described, and we need to think about how to do that. Or brands need to come to the market with something that helps people keep their devices in good shape while they own them.
Yeah, and I think consumer demand too, like letting manufacturers know that you want a cell phone that you could fix, or you want
Mhm.
a power drill that you can fix, instead of something that you end up throwing out.
Well, here's a whole product category that I know has only stayed the same in a lot of ways since the 1980s, and that is stereo equipment. If you can get an analog amp from back in the 80s or the 70s, it often sounds better than the best digital amplifiers. And Doug, you probably have opinions on this, but don't you think you could probably buy used most of the sound equipment that people covet and often overspend for?
Yeah, the components are larger typically because components have gotten smaller, but the quality, and I like an old-fashioned dial on my stereo where I can go whoo when it moves across the AM or FM band. Yeah, great old, especially if you can get stuff that's tubed. That kind of stuff is fantastic. But yeah, there's plenty of opportunity for to find those sorts of things used, and the idea of fixing things too. Sometimes push yourself a little bit. Go on YouTube and find a video on how to replace the latch in your microwave that may have gone bad. If you have the time to do these things, push yourself. Find how to do it, because it'll save you some money and produce less waste.
Well, what we've done is we haven't made the investment yet, but we're looking at a bidet, because Americans use about 141 rolls of toilet paper per person a year. Which is an extraordinarily expensive thing. It comes out to something like $300, $650 a year on toilet paper for a family of 4, if you use that number. And I know that's just an average. It's not what everybody does. But we think that using a bidet will be a substantial savings in paper. We also have to consider the water impact of using the bidet instead of the toilet paper. And that's something that we're still looking at, how to get the best out of that. So I haven't gotten to the answer to the question, is this the best quality I can afford yet in order to be comfortable to buy that bidet?
I have a bidet, and I don't feel like it uses that much water. I had one where it could use warm water, but then you had to run it to get to the warm water.
Right.
So I actually just have one where I use cold water. It ends up being room temperature because it sits, in the pipe generally. But I'd imagine it uses less than half a cup of water. It just kind of shoots it out.
Yeah, and warmth is one of my wife's primary criteria.
I have a bidet question, and this may be an opportunity for comic relief. You spray the bidet sprays, but then you're wet. Do you then dry yourself?
There's on the many of them, even the ones that cost $50 and $70 and up to $2,800, have air dryers. So you sit there for a moment.
Really?
And it dries you.
Otherwise,
so
just a towel
you can go without any paper.
Okay. Okay, that's a great mystery has been solved.
The dryer, to me, seems like overkill.
Okay.
Because you're also stuck on the toilet for another 90 seconds.
Right. And you could just use a towel, theoretically, if you're nice and clean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a friend who used to use reusable baby wipes for her daughter, and then she started thinking, well, why not cut up old T-shirts? And, she just uses it for number one, and then they just wash them and use old T-shirts instead of most of their... I don't think it's for everyone, but for people that are more hardcore about saving paper, it's an option.
Well, and that's another one of the ideas we have in our changes you can make during the stay-at-home orders article, which came out on May 4th. Use rags instead of paper towels. So potentially even in the bathroom is a great way to think about this. Another thing, and we've focused on this, is eliminating food waste. So we try not to throw out any food during this time, more than we ever did before, because we're painfully aware of what it takes to get it. And food waste accounts for about 40% of the volume of food manufactured in the United States each year.
Wow.
We're the most wasteful nation on earth that way. We can certainly do a better job of that. And the next thing we're looking at too is the change in the work style. So, many companies, Amazon, for instance, has told its office workers that they don't need to come back to work until October 6th of this year at the earliest. Twitter announced that half of their employees will never need to come back into the office again. And that means a couple of things are going to happen. The commute will be reduced. There's potential for a collapse in business or commercial real estate too, because there's a lot less demand for it. But that means that we have a lot of changes in the way we think about our earning capacity. You can tap into one network to do some work. You can tap into another network to do some work. And this is not to endorse the idea of the gig economy, which is not going to work well for everybody unless we have a national healthcare and social safety net that really allows people to move mobily between different jobs. But it is an opportunity for everybody who has a role that allows them to work remotely to rethink when and where and how they do their work. And that could save gasoline for commuting. It can save massive amounts of carbon if you choose to use your computer and streaming and the internet efficiently, especially using web services that are driven by renewable energy. All of these things represent opportunities to start to carve away at our carbon footprint. So what kind of things are you doing at home for hand sanitizers and reducing that keeping clean waste, not the bidet waste, but the keeping clean waste overall, Sarah?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been making my own hand sanitizer, and for a while I was making it with isopropyl alcohol, and then I stopped being able to get that. So then I switched to grain alcohol, and now a local distillery is making hand sanitizer. And that seems like a great way to support a local business and also support a local business that was kind of agile in the face of this and found, new products to make. I've been using hydrogen peroxide and just refilling spray bottles that I have and using that.
And which is perfectly safe around the house too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I even had my daughter ask me, hey, can I spray this on food? Which I don't think it's quite that safe, but...
No, but then again, at least she didn't try to inject it.
Exactly. Yes, she's got better judgment than that, thankfully. Yeah, I guess those are the main things. I actually make a lot of my own cleaning products too, and I just written a series for Earth911 before the shutdown happened. So it was nice. I had all these different ingredients at home, so it made it easier to suddenly start making hand sanitizer or things like that because I already had vegetable glycerin in the house. And I've been asking neighbors if they have any empty bottles, because that's one of the things that often gets tricky is if you want to make little pocket-sized containers of hand sanitizer, for example, it requires containers, and it is possible to probably get them at the store or online, but I'd rather not. So I just started asking neighbors, and this probably isn't sanitary, but I did look in our dumpster, and then I sanitized the bottles and used some that were in the recycling bin.
Do you think there's kind of a role for people within a neighborhood to take on certain aspects of the recycling for everyone? And that's something where you could even start to share some value. I do your recycling, but you make me dinner once a week and bring it over to the house.
Yeah, and kind of indirectly we end up doing that because there's a couple people that maintain the compost bin, and there's a couple people that maintain the hand carts that we use because we have parking in one area. We don't have attached garages, and there's one family that brings in the recycling that have deposits on it because Maine has bottle deposits, and there's a couple of people that handle the single stream recycling dumpsters. So we kind of do have like little niches or things that interest us, and then those people take the lead on that. But I think it's a great way to do things because there's certain things that I'm just not really that interested. I love having a compost bin, but I'd rather not have to figure out how to set it up and how to rotate it. It's great if someone else handles that, but I'm really interested in other things like planting native species or
which you could help your neighbors do in exchange for other services. There was a company called Josephine in the Bay Area that helped cooks connect with people who wanted to get a fresh dinner every night. And they actually they went broke trying to change the law to allow this to happen. And they have started to resurface after the COVID lockdown began with an alliance of cooks who are working together on a nonprofit basis, help their neighborhoods eat well. And that's the opportunity we have to look at the system that has delivered all this stuff. A lot of it we know we don't really need, and rethink the values that we use when making decisions about what matters and what it's worth. And I think we'll find a lot of the things that we have considered very valuable are not particularly so because we've never looked at the environmental damage they cause.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it's great when you can have those kinds of sort of collaborative, non-monetary relationships with people where it's more about bartering or, hey, can I borrow your car on Tuesdays and I'll watch your kids on Thursdays, or, where, it's a little bit give and take, but where both people are contributing. So it comes
right.
out.
And a perfect example is just, I'll use the car on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You use the car on Tuesday and Thursday. Now, one of us doesn't need to drive a car or own another.
Or to own a car. Yeah.
And that's where we can think about all the extra capacity that the old way of doing things is going to leave around and lower the value of, so that it can be treated as a shared resource.
And I think when it works best is when you have a resource that isn't beneficial to you all the time. Like if I'm driving my son to school every day and there's usually 2 empty seats in the car, that has very little value to me because they're empty and I'm not getting anything out of it. But if a neighbor says, hey, could you give my son a ride? I'll make sure he's ready by the time you leave. Then that's a very small favor, but then I just save somebody, a little bit of gas and 20 minutes of time.
And in the Bay Area, there's a service for moms to share that driving that, like Uber, compensates the mom that does the driving.
Oh, wow.
So we can start to rethink about how to connect value to services. And that, I think, is really the biggest opportunity that we have, because the old structure of you got to be in our place to do our work has been blown up by the real evidence of the fact that so many people are being very productive at home.
Yeah. And I think this pandemic is just a huge opportunity to look at how we're doing things, look at what's working well, what's not working well, and recreate things. Because it's sort of like whenever you need to, I don't know, reboot your computer, you think about, okay, what programs do I want open now? And I think this pandemic can be the same way. And I'm not trying to, sound
sugarcoat it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people are dying and they're, it's a really hard situation for many of us economically.
It's a terrible situation. But this is analogous to what happened in Europe after the bubonic plague. There was a radical transformation of society, and it was because a third of society died. Hopefully, we can prevent that kind of death rate. Obviously, COVID is nowhere near as virulent as bubonic plague. But if we can prevent every death we possibly can while exercising our intelligence about what can change instead of, as we've been told, forget this ever happened and go back to the way we used to be. This is one of those times when nature serves up an opportunity for us to assess and change.
Yeah, another way that I think we can change that could be really positive is just spending more time outdoors. Like when I have socialized with people, it's been at a distance and it's been outdoors. And it's wonderful. It's getting me to go on more hikes. And, at night it gets kind of chilly here still. So we might have like a fire going or things like that. Or if it is a cold day, it's warmer if you're hiking around, So I think it's a great opportunity to spend more time outside and kind of orient our, at least ideally the social part of our lives, outside.
And to reconnect with our neighbors and build local networks, not only of friendships, but even for the things we depend on, like food. Connect with the CSA in your area and get vegetables delivered directly from the farmer is another thing to consider right now.
Yeah, and gardening. It sounds like there's been a huge revival in gardening. From talking to people at garden supply stores, it sounds like they can't keep seedlings in stock, and I keep seeing empty seed racks at the grocery store. So it seems like gardening is really...
And that's the interesting thing. There are a lot of businesses that are booming because of people's response to COVID. And the seed and gardening industry is one of the beneficiaries right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, Sarah, thanks very much for talking through all this stuff. So I want to move on to the Earthling questions now.
All right. We do have Earthling questions. Gabby from Spring Valley, Illinois asks, I am wondering how to get rid of some tires that were dumped in our property.
Well, this is one of those things that your impolite neighbors do to you sometimes. And tires actually have some value. You have several options, including just dropping them off at the local transfer station. Most transfer stations will accept tires. But you might also be able to make a little money. If those tires have any usable tread left, go to a used tire store and see if you can get a couple of bucks for them. Alternatively, call the used tire store and see if they'll come pick them up for free. There's a lot of ways to go about saving money here. Tires can be reused as paving material. They can be made into soft surfaces in playgrounds and lots of other stuff. So they're definitely worth recycling. We've had a substantial decrease in the number of tire piles and tire fires, one of which is still burning after 30 or 40 years, since recycling of tires took off back in the 80s and 90s. So it's a good idea. The EPA estimates that about 1.7 million tons of rubber is discarded every year or is recycled every year as of 2017. But that's only about 40.3% of the amount of rubber in tires that were produced that year. So there's a long way to go. Taking the time to do the recycling of those tires is going to help reduce a lot of virgin oil use and rubber use, which reduces the environmental impact of the tire industry. So get out there and take the time to give a call to a used tire store at the very least, Gabby, and I think you'll find your solution.
Sounds good. Karen, who reached out to us on Facebook, asks, I have a marble fireplace surround to dispose of. What can I do with it?
Well, so marble fireplace surround is basically falls into the category we call construction waste. And if you go to the search engine on search.earth911.com and select construction waste and enter your zip code, you can find a local option. Typically, construction waste can't go into a curbside program, so don't toss it into your bin. It's because of the size of the material, the bulk, and the weight. It's harder to pick up and carry. So you'll need to take that to a transfer station where they handle construction waste. And not all transfer stations do that. Again, go to search at earth911.com. Construction waste includes other things like plumbing fixtures, doors, windows, wood, old insulation, all that kind of stuff counts. Even trees, stumps, and earth that's cleared from construction sites become construction waste, according to the recycling industry. Take the time to learn a little about your local construction waste recycling and make a choice, and I think you'll find you can get it taken care of.
All right. And Miriam on Facebook asks, and this is a common question, so it's good to answer it. I have fluorescent light bulbs. Where can I dispose of them?
Well, and of course, fluorescents are a lot more environmentally friendly in the first place, but they do require some special handling. And if we're talking about compact fluorescent lights, which are the ones that are replacing standard incandescent bulbs, that often is not possible because people have broken the bulb in the first place. You cannot recycle a broken fluorescent light. You need to send them in whole. It's actually the gas that's in the light itself that makes them that needs to be recycled along with the material, the glass in the bulb. So take the time to carefully remove those bulbs and put them in something that can be delivered to a recycler without becoming broken. And basically, if they break, there's no market for it. The recycler can't make any money.
And if you have break them, take care with that too, because there is mercury in those bulbs.
Again, and that's why these things need to be handled specially.
Yeah.
So when you have the CFL out, put it into a plastic zipper bag to prevent any mercury from leaking if it does break during transportation. And don't put multiple CFLs in the same bag because that does increase the chance they're going to break. There's several kinds of places you can take a CFL, including locations that recycle antifreeze, batteries, oil, paint, and household hazardous waste. So a lot of locations, municipal locations, will do an annual or a twice yearly household hazardous waste event. See when that is and take your CFLs to that event. They're also accepted at Home Depot, IKEA, and Lowe's stores around the United States. So you can find a drop-off location at any of those retailers on the search engine as well.
Yeah, those Lowe's is where I typically go to, and they have it's right up front at the information area, and they have a bin there, and you have to put them in individually, but you put them in, and you're all good.
Yeah, and it's just taking that little bit of time. And we were talking earlier about the contamination rate. It's these little steps that make the recycling system work, and that's the big trick here. Is our time and effort to prepare this stuff results in a successful recycling process that ends up reducing our load on the environment. So, folks, do check out a couple of our recent interviews. We interviewed Sean Gundy, who's the founder and CEO of Bevy, and they make a water station for offices that uses tap water, distills it, and then can carbonate it or flavor it. It's a neat system, and it's reducing the number of plastic bottles and cans that need to be recycled in the offices that they serve by hundreds of thousands and millions a year as they grow. So check out Bevy. It's a really interesting interview. I mentioned talking with Joe Pickard of ISRI, the chief economist at ISRI. He talked with us about the evolution of the recycling industry, both before and after the COVID lockdown. It's a fascinating conversation. Check that one out. And also, we talked with the married co-founders of So Good, So You, which is a company that makes energy shots, probiotic energy shots that are completely organic, vegan, and served in a bottle that breaks down in landfill conditions about 17 times faster than regular plastic. It's called the Better Bottle, BTR-BTL. That's a really cool company making a lot of investment in continuing to improve the sustainability of their product. check them out as well. And we always encourage you to send us feedback at feedback@earth911.com. Just fire us a note, ask us a question, and we'll be happy to answer it on air or get back to you in email. And also stay tuned on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and of course at earth911.com. We'll see you next time. This is Sustainability in Your Ear, and we're Earth 911. Take care.